specific. What does that actually mean? Coach Hanley here from Viking Performance Training going to go over that right now. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot when it comes to the sports performance industry, is sports specific. We use it all the time here at Viking Performance Training because the training that we do is indeed sports specific. But a lot of times you see that word used, or even when people use it themselves talking about what it is that they want, it's not actually accurate to what sports specific really means. So sports specific, when it comes to training, is talking about the physical needs of the sport. Now that doesn't mean that things are going to look exactly like they do in the sport. What it means is that the strength needed in the sport, the speed needed in the sport, the acceleration needed in the sport, governed by the muscles and the movements in the way that they're used in the sport, that's what's being trained. So this doesn't mean that we're taking movements straight from a sport and then using them like by adding weights or ankle weights or bands or whatever. It means that we're strengthening the actual muscles being used, making sure that the movements stay flexible so that they can use them on the field, and then teaching them how to be stronger, faster, and more explosive in the best way that's going to help that athlete perform on the court. So again, what we're looking at here is effort and intensity. So we need to make sure that those muscles and those movements then become better at the effort and intensity happening in the sport. So is it going to be like a strict explosive motion like out on the court? For example, an explosive rebound or dunk up onto the basketball court, or an explosive first step on the soccer pitch? Or is it going to be like a lot of repetitive motions and like with high effort and high intensity? Is it going to be like sprinting, a 100-meter sprint, where not only do you have to be explosive, you have to be explosive step after step after step to beat the rest of your competitors in that short sprint? Or maybe it's high effort, but the duration and the repetitions is way higher, like say in a 5K, in a 5,000-meter run. That's a different story. Or is it going to be an explosive movement against with just your body weight against gravity, such as like soccer and that in what I mentioned a little bit ago, or say baseball, a very small object? Or is it going to be an explosive motion against another like heavy, equally aggressive force, say like a lineman on the football field? So the effort and intensity need to match the muscles that you're working and the force and the strength and the speed that you're trying to develop. Again, you need to also look at how long does the effort last, how often will it happen, and what is the recovery period between those? Is it going to be fairly long? Is it going to happen repetitively over and over again before you have maximum recovery? Is it going to happen a few times and then you get a longer break before it's likely to happen a few times again? All of those things are taken care of and considered in a good sports-specific training program. Also, injury prevention. A good sports-specific training program will specifically be addressing some of the higher injury rates to be likely in a specific sport. There are a lot of basic and general ones out there. A good training program should keep you healthy all around, but every sport has its own injuries that happen at a higher incidence. So a good sports-specific training program will also be taking that into account. In some cases, it's lower body. In some cases, that means specifically ankle. In some sports, there's a lot more knee injuries. Some sports have a lot of shoulder issues. Some sports have higher concussion risks. Again, these are issues which are possible in almost every sport, but specific sports will have their own injuries that happen at a higher rate. So a good sports-specific program will also address those. And then finally, the training that you do in sports-specific training needs to be able to actually transfer to the athlete when they're playing and competing. It doesn't help to just be good in the weight room. You don't want to be just a weight room warrior who seems to never actually get better or see the improvements that they're working so hard for on the field and the court. You need to be able to see this transfer of training. Again, this is kind of an abstract idea to some, but there is also a lot of science backing it up. In fact, one of the greatest sports science researchers of all time, Anatoly Bondarchuk, broke down track and field in this exact manner by looking at all the different events in track and field, the actual results of the different athletes through track and field championships like over the course of decades, and then broke down how most of those athletes benefited, or in some cases actually got worse from doing specific exercises in their training based on the results they were getting in track and field. Again, that's an idea that should constantly be that should be permeating every single strength and conditioning program in the country at every level. It's not only getting stronger. It's not just about hard work. It's not just about being tired. It's not just about getting your power clean up in the gym. All those things can be helpful if they're actually transferring to your sport. So there needs to be constant feedback from the athlete, seeing how they're feeling, seeing how they're doing, but then a good skilled strength and conditioning coach will actually be able to predict those things and know when to work on one lift, on one characteristic more than another. It's not just about simple planning and simple periodization. Again, different athletes at different levels will get more out of different lifts. Again, it's not always the same for everybody, and very few people understand that. So if you want to get to that true peak top condition, if you really want to fulfill your potential as an athlete, you need somebody who can actually understand how to continue developing you and transferring your performance onto the court and onto the field. So again, the last part of that is you also should be peaking at the right time. So you should, as an athlete, pretty much always be ready. So you should be there's never a point in time where you should get out of shape. You should always be ready, but you should be hitting your best peak performances, your best physical performances at the time they matter most. That does not mean every single game. Again, that's not how a peak works. We're talking about you're in good shape, you're turning in very good performances throughout your season, throughout most of your competitions, you're staying healthy, but then during your most important competitions, whether that's playoffs, whether that's rivalry games, whether that's championships, all of your training should have gotten you to peak and hit your best performance, your best physical readiness at that moment in time, at that moment in the season. That is true sport-specific training. And that's what we do here at Viking Performance Training. That's what I've been doing for decades now, starting as a strength and conditioning coach at West Virginia University for 10 years before opening here in 2014. And the passion is to actually see different athletes of all ages continue to get better. So specifically here at Viking, we do help school-age athletes continue to improve their performance, to train at their best possible, to compete at their best possible level. If we can help you with that, let us know. And again, more than anything else, I'm open to questions because I love educating people on this subject. I want to see the field of strength and conditioning and sports performance improve everywhere. So again, stay tuned, keep watching. Thanks for watching. Share this with anybody that you know, and good luck out there.